So before we start, guys, I think I need all of you all to stand up. We've got the graveyard shift post-lunch. Stand up, give yourselves a big round of applause. Clap as loudly as you've clapped, like you've never clapped before. So, this is the amount of energy you have in this room. Thank you. This was a big round of applause for yourselves, for being here, for making it. I didn't know there was a big bunch of people upstairs also. Good to have you all here. And, when we begin our day at JetSetGo every morning in all our different offices across the country, be it in Bombay, Delhi, Pune, Chennai, wherever, we start our day by giving all ourselves a huge round of applause for the simple reason that we like to celebrate every mistake, small, big. We like to celebrate every victory. We like to welcome the day, to welcome what we're going to go through, and to start the day on a positive note. How many of you all here want to be entrepreneurs? Can I have a show of hands? I can't see very well, but if I could raise. That's a huge number of people. So, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since, now you've got this fancy word entrepreneur, now you have this word startup. But I wanted to start my own business ever since the day I could remember being able to think. And it was more to do with necessity rather than the want to do it. I'm going to tell you a little bit briefly about my journey to building JetSetGo and then get into what JetSetGo does and how we've built the business so far. But before I go into that, how many of you all actually have flown in the last 6 months? Been on a plane? We've got quite a few people here. Can we have a mic with anyone who raised their hands, and can you tell us how you feel when you're flying? Is a mic? Can you give him a mic? Anyone who's flown in the last 6 months? There were 2 people here. Yeah. So how do you feel when you take flight?
So I think from my family background is from the aviation.
Wow.
So I'm always amazed by how such a milestone has been achieved. Because whenever I sit on an aircraft, everyone's taking photos, stuff and all. My thought process is, how does this engine work? And it has been since forever. So actually, this was my flight after a long time. I think it's been 4 years since I last flew. And this month, actually February. So we went to Hyderabad.
Wow,
so,
that's where I'm going tonight.
Oh, I hope you enjoy. So it's a wonderful city. So yeah. It was just, I had a nostalgic moment. Even my mom and my brother, he's my brother right here. So we just, I don't know, it's something very special, aviation.
And what's your family into? You mentioned your family's, you've got an aviation background, right?
So 2 of my uncles are in Emirates. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And one of them was in Aviate earlier. So, and another one works in a private firm in Dubai. So, yeah, I have a pretty long history in aviation.
And you're not getting into aviation. We need to talk after this then. You need to get into aviation. Sure. But yeah, so on a serious note, guys, my love for aviation began when I was 4 years old. There was this Hindu-Muslim riots going on in Bhopal, and there was an emergency of a helicopter, this giant creature that landed on my rooftop, on the rooftop of our family house. And all of us kids were playing on the roof when we suddenly see this giant creature come sit there, and it stayed there for almost 25 days. Much to my dad's horror, who thought the ceiling was going to break, the roof was going to break, and God alone knows what's going to happen. There was actually a military helicopter that had made an emergency landing due to a technical issue, which is why it stayed on our rooftop for 25 days. But unlike all you lucky folks, we didn't have Google back in the day. We had these things called Britannica encyclopedias, which were a set of about 32 books. And that's where all our knowledge came about for everything, be it countries, cities, states, planes, trains, how things moved, how things ran, everything. And I got so enthralled by everything that flew, because for those 25 days we had engineers coming on our rooftop, fixing the helicopter, pilots coming for trial runs until the helicopter finally flew off, that I just wanted to know everything about how any flying device worked. And I wanted to become a pilot. Unfortunately or fortunately, I belong to a very traditional Marwari family. Do we have any Marwaris here? Then I know how much trouble I'm getting into. Okay, not so many. Then we are fine. So the way Marwari business families work is girls don't work for other people, girls don't join businesses. A lot like Orthodox India. And, so my love for aviation continued. I always knew in my head that I wanted to become a pilot. However, I never voiced this out loudly. I didn't have the courage to talk about it loudly. I didn't have the courage to stand up and tell everyone, I want to be a pilot. I want to start my own business in aviation. I went to boarding school when I was 6 years old. And I wasn't one of the most popular kids in boarding school. I was one of those kids who sat in the front row because no one wanted to sit with me. I always stood in the beginning of the line. What you would call, you guys are in college, so I don't know what the new term is now, but in those days, what you would call a loser probably is, I would fit the ideal definition, a geek, loser, nerd, whatever you may like to call it. I was only obsessed with the idea of learning more about planes, learning more about helicopters. I wasn't really concerned with the real world. In the 10th grade, I moved back to Bhopal to be with my parents, back from boarding school. And that's when I told my father that, in the 11th and 12th for high school, I want to take science because I want to become a pilot. That was the first time that I actually spoke about this. And to my shock and my father's utter horror, for him, his whole world had come to a spinning stop. My daughter wants to become a pilot. His first line was, "Hamare ghar ki ladkiyan dusron ke liye kaam nahi karti hain." And I was like, so? Then he said, you want to become a driver? I said, no, I want to become a pilot. He said, what's the difference between a driver and a pilot? Both ferry people around. So I said, no, a driver ferries you around while a pilot ferries the whole world around. And we kept having this back and forth banter. However, I don't think I really succeeded in convincing my father to let me take physics, chemistry, maths, and become a pilot. And he said, okay, why don't you take commerce? You can work in finance. You'll marry into a business family. You can help them in the back office. You won't have to meet people from outside, etc., etc. And at that age, obviously, I was all of 14 when, 14. I was 2 years younger for my grade. So I listened to what my parents had to say, and I took commerce. I hated accounts. I hated economics. Those weren't subjects that I really loved. I got 56 out of 100 in my 10th grade maths exam. So, given that every other paper was 90 plus, and suddenly in maths you get 56, it just goes to show my aptitude for anything numerical, is the way I would like to call it. Either way, so I took commerce, and after that, it was time to go to college. So my father and I came to this understanding that I'll go to design school in Bombay because I also had a very creative streak. I loved drawing, painting, doing art. And it was also a very acceptable thing for a girl from a Marwari family to join. And I moved to Bombay to study design. And when my parents left me there, I don't know how much pocket money you guys get, but my father was giving me 2,000 rupees a month outside of my rent and transport. And this was in, I think, 2005. Those 2,000 rupees got over on day 1 of the month. I didn't know how to survive the balance 29 days. And when I told him, what am I going to do? He said, what do you need money for? So I said, to eat out, to drink. He's like, no, if I give you more money, you'll start smoking, doing drugs, and drinking. I was like, either way, that's going to happen. Whether you give me money or not, I'll still smoke, I'll still drink, I'll still go out, I'll still party. So you might as well, come down to... I can see a lot of smiles on people's faces, but yeah, so I said, either you can help me with what I want or I've got to figure it out. And clearly, I had to figure it out. So I started working for a company where I used to go after college and design ads for them. I was studying visual communication design, and I was lucky enough to get this job where I was being paid about 30,000 rupees to go every day after school, after college, to go and do work for them. And we would work till about 10, 10:30, 11 in the night every day to execute whatever was required. And, in those days, even now, I think, but 30,000 rupees as a college kid was a whole lot of money. I was willing to give my entire evening, only to realize that, by doing this job, I've already killed 6 days a week. I can't go out with my friends because I'm working every evening. So that went on, and I think it was about 6 months into the job when I got a call at about 10:15 in the night. The owner of the company wanted to see the ads that we were creating. And I didn't even know what the owner was, what the chairman was. I was very young, naive, and I wasn't really exposed to the real world and how things really work at that point of time. I used to have bright pink hair at that point of time, wear so many bangles, torn jeans, nothing, forget corporate, but nothing remotely fitting into a corporate office is how I would like to call it. So I walked into his office, and that poor man was so stunned. He kept looking like this. And then he's like, have you lost your way? I said, no, I think you wanted to see the ads. I've got them for you here. He's like, no, you work for me. I was like, yeah, I work for this company. And he had a huge model of this building, just as soon as you entered his office, this huge demo model of a real estate project that they were constructing. And it had a helipad on top. And in all my naivety and foolishness about the world, I always say, stay hungry, stay foolish. I went to him and I said, this helicopter that you've placed over, this helipad that you've placed over here is not going to work. And he looked at me as like, what? I said, I'm trying to tell you this helipad you've placed over here is not going to work. And he again looked at me like, this girl's gone crazy. I said, no, it's not going to work. And how could you possibly think of building a helipad in this manner? I said, okay, fine. Then he saw the ads and he chased me out. The next day we had this sketching exam in college where they used to have a model pose. All of us used to sit around the model and sketch. And I used to have this black and white Nokia phone, which we used to play Snake on. I'm sure most of your fathers would have had it when you were very young. And you would have stolen it to play Snake and use the torchlight. So I used that phone of mine was lying in the bag. The bags were kept far away from where we were sitting. And the phone just kept ringing, kept ringing, kept ringing. And I didn't have the courage to get up and even touch the phone or switch it off, because I would get expelled out of not expelled, but I would be sent out of the exam for carrying a phone into the hall and leaving it on ringer. So anyway, lunch break came, and I came out, and there were obviously calls from my office. My manager was calling me nonstop. So I called my manager, and I really thought I had lost my job for the incident that had happened the last evening. So I was even more petrified. I said, how am I going to get another job? How is this going to work out? So anyway, I mustered all my courage together, and I called my manager back, and the manager was like, what did you do? The chairman wants to meet you right now. My first reaction was, who's the chairman? What's the chairman? He said, the person you met yesterday was the chairman, the owner of the company. He wants to meet you. I was like completely convinced at that point of time that I'm definitely going to be losing my job. So I left my exam, went running to the office, waited outside for an hour, and I walked into a boardroom full of suits, some really old men sitting on either side of the table. And the chairman goes out to say, young gentlemen, this is the lady who told us about the helipad, and et cetera, et cetera. And all those poor people got a huge lecture on how he's been making a consistent fool of himself with that model. And then he gave me the opportunity to actually start the aviation business for that particular corporate. And I was, I think, all of 16 and a half, 17 at that point of time. And he told me, he said, why don't you, we're looking at buying some private jets and helicopters and starting a private aviation business. Would you like to head it for us? And I looked at him up and down thinking it's a really bad joke to throw me out of the company. Or is it a test? What is the answer I'm supposed to give? But before I could really react, he introduced me to the chief financial officer of the company, and he said, Venkat will help you draw up a business plan. I was like, great. I didn't know what a business plan was, guys. I knew what a business plan was. I just didn't know how to make a business plan. I'd never made one before in my life. And we walked out of the chairman's office at that time. And Venkat walked out with me. He's this South Indian old man with a bald head. And he's like, beta, you don't worry. Right now the chairman is very impressed with you. But later he will also forget, you will also forget. 2 weeks later, you come and say, sir, I can't do this. And I looked at him like, why? I said, no, it is not easy to run all these things. You're very young, you have to go to college. Why do you want to get into this? 2 weeks later, chairman will give you a good reward, you do your designing. Until such time that this guy had spoken to me, I had absolutely no inclination to even make the business plan, put in the effort. I was just like, this is time pass. The moment this man said, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, you're not going to be capable of doing it, I said, to hell with you, I am going to do this. And he never helped me with the business plan. I Googled the life out of what a business plan is, how to make one. And I made something which was, I think, very amateurish. The chairman liked it. He gave me the opportunity to start the company. We invested about $80 million, bought a few planes and helicopters, started running it. Today, if someone got me the same business plan, I would laugh at that guy and say, that's the door, thank you very much. But that man took took a chance on me. And that's when I really started learning about aviation. I had no formal education, no formal training. I shouldn't be saying this here, but I stopped attending college. I used to just go give my exams. And I used to spend my entire day in the office. I used to sleep in the hangar, learn how planes are repaired in the hangar. Today I can assemble and disassemble a plane blindfolded, purely because of the practical knowledge that I gained while doing that at the right age also. The only catch in this whole situation was that my parents had no idea that I was working, because obviously, like my father said, girls from our families don't work. And when they did find out was also the time when I was just about graduating. So my father said that, why don't you, obviously not said, first he was really angry. And I think he'd lost all his patience with whatever he had seen. Post that, he said, you've got two choices: either come home and get married or go abroad and study for a couple of years. So I had a vendor in the UK who had been offering me a job for a very long time. I chose to move to London on the pretext of doing another MBA with my parents. And I started working with this company. I think this is where I really learned a lot. I learned real life aviation. We built some amazing stuff. We built the world's fastest turboprop aircraft, fully carbon composite, which is currently under commercial manufacturing now. We built the world's fastest car, which ran on aerodynamics. We did some really, really cool things that have never been done before. But it also taught me how to manage a P&L better, how to, what are the gaps in the business, in the business aviation space overall, and where's the change that you can bring about. And it was going really well, but I'd gone there to do my MBA. I didn't even know where my classroom was. I used to just go give my exams, get the marks that would make my parents happy, and continue working. When I got my degree, it was again time to come back home and get married, like my parents wanted me to, right? So I came back home to convince my parents that I want to continue working, and I don't want to I don't want to get married or do whatever they have in mind for me. But my mom said that you've had this pain in your arm for over a year. Why don't you get it checked? I said, fine, let's do that. And they also had an ideal boy lined up who they wanted me to go see after a week and probably get married to in 6 months. And anyway, so we went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with cancer. I think within 6 hours of the first visit to the doctor was when the diagnosis came in. And that's when I think, I didn't even know what cancer was at that point of time. There was no one in my near family who had been affected by it. There was no one who had, experienced it. So to me, it was like, okay, it's cancer, what is it? Only when I Googled what cancer is, I had Google by then, thankfully, did I realize the problem that I'm going to be dealing with and the magnanimity of the entire issue. I think it took about a year to finish treatment and get out of it completely, or go into remission, as is the medical term for it, which is nothing but towards cure. And it was that 1 year which gave me the strength to be what I am today. It gave me the strength to face my dreams. It taught me the most important lesson, which I'm here to share with you today, is you can do anything you believe in. We went to a lot of doctors for their opinions, etc. Most doctors said you have 4 years, 4 days, quality of life is going to be bad, do you really want to live, etc., etc. So one side you have the medical fraternity, which is not really encouraging you or giving you hope. And in my head, I was convinced that I'm going to fight this and come out of it. On the other side, I also had a very orthodox family system. I remember I was standing on the top of the staircase, and my mom was standing downstairs surrounded by all my aunts, who were telling her that even if she, in Hindi they were talking, in fact, saying that agar teek bhi ho gayi, to shaadi kaise hoegi. So I think almost telling my parents that even if she gets cured, what's the point, right? And I remember walking down the stairs and telling my mom, that, Mom, don't worry. I'll be on the cover of Forbes in 5 years from now. You don't have to worry about anything else. I didn't know how you get on the cover of Forbes. I didn't know how you get into the Forbes. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. But I had this conviction that I'm going to beat this goddamn disease and I'm going to come out of it and I'm going to become really strong and really powerful and I'm going to achieve all my dreams. And then began a journey of chemo, radiation, etc. for a year, which wasn't easy, but I always say cancer was the best thing that happened to me because it gave me the power to believe in me. It gave me the power to fight whatever came across my path. It made me a fighter. Anyone who says you're a survivor, no, every one of us is a survivor because we come out of situations. I think what's more important is to be a fighter, to come out of challenges that are put on your path and fight them and come out successfully. I went, during cancer, I think I went to this bookstore that used to exist, I don't know if they're still around, called Crossword, where I bought every single book that was written on cancer, on people who had cancer, on different ways to cure cancer. And two of these books were written by this cyclist who's no longer very famous, called Lance Armstrong, who got caught in a drug scandal recently. But at that point of time, he was not part of any drug scandal. He had had brain cancer and about 6 to 7 very dangerous types of cancers. He had fought them and still won the Tour de France 7 times. I said, if he can do it, so can I. And that was all the motivation I needed. So we fought the disease, came out of it, and why I say cancer is the best thing that happened to me was because I was no longer marriageable in the Marwari community, which made me very happy, but made my parents very, very, very unhappy, as you may be aware. And then I took a conscientious decision. I said, God's given me another chance at life. God's told me what I've been overlooking all this time, which is that do what do what you want to do. Don't do what the world's asking you to do. Do what makes you happy. Do what you really feel like doing, right? And so I made up my mind, and I went to my father the day my last treatment got over and told him that I want to start an aviation business. And he looked at me and he said, no, you just recovered. You need a year of rest, getting back into life, etc. I knew if I took 1 more year off my life, I won't need rest, I'll need a shrink. Because I was going completely crazy, doing absolutely nothing, sitting at home all day long. And my parents go for a walk every morning. When they left for a walk, I packed my bags and I moved to Delhi. I had great boarding school friends who took me in, took care of me. And I started what I call JetSetGo 1.0. And that was the first version of JetSetGo. So you learn on your entrepreneurial journey what you always first set out to do, keeps getting changed, and the net result is something completely different from what you originally envisaged it to be. So anyway, I stayed with my friends for 5 to 6 months, hustled a lot, moved around from house to house. I went to every single person who I knew owned a plane or who I knew was in the industry, tried to tell them about my idea for JetSetGo. What was my idea for JetSetGo? I'm talking to you about 2011, guys. 2011, mobile apps were not known to everybody. When I told my father I want to build an app where people can book planes and where people who own planes can list planes, my father's first reaction was, you want to make a mobile game? Are you sure you can do it? I mean, today, I think everyone from a 70-year-old to a 6-year-old knows what an app is. But I'm talking of a completely different era, I think, altogether. And so anyway, I was very young again, very naive, and I said, I'm going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I'm going to make the next Facebook of the world. I'm going to build this app where every single plane owner in the world is going to come and list their planes, and every single plane user in the world is going to come and book a plane. In all my naivety and foolishness, I went about doing it. I got some friends to develop the app for me. I had no marketing money, no sales money. I had only left home with 5,600 rupees, and that's all the money I had. And I had to figure this out. So I started doing a lot of side hustles. I would give advisory on planes, try to sell people planes, try to help them find spare parts, to first make a living to support myself, and also to invest into my idea of building this business. So we went about it. It took about 3 years to actually get the app to life and get people to use it. Unfortunately, what happened was the first flight that was booked on the app never took off, because 2 hours prior to the departure, the owner of the plane called me and he said, I'm so sorry, but my pilot's not well, so the plane can't fly. And I think that's the day all my motivation, self-belief, courage, optimism, everything went down the drain, because I was just like, I've spent 3 years of my life trying to do this, get this to reality, and it's not going to work because the first flight didn't happen. And I cried for days and days. I didn't know what to do. And then finally I realized, I said, isn't this a sign that what I'm trying to do may not be 100% right? There is a much bigger problem that I need to solve. That was like one part of my brain telling me. The other part of my brain was telling me, if you don't get this right, if you don't build a business, if you don't fix things, you're going to have to go back to Bhopal and live with your parents and listen to what they say, which is what they always said was, this is not going to work, right? And I think it was more about this part of the brain which was scared about going back to Bhopal, which actually encouraged me to do more, try more, etc. And that's when I realized that the problem I was solving was only 10% of the private jet problem in the country. The real problem was delivery, service, commitment. What do customers want? They want the right plane at the right time at the right price. And that's the missing element that I had to solve. So I went into I call it Excel sheet warrior mode, where I'm trying to figure out how to build new things, get all my ideas together. And I said to myself, if capital was never a constraint, if I could get all the money in the world, what would I do? The simple answer was I would go and buy planes. However, when I went back into my real world, firstly, where would I get $500 million from on an idea? Secondly, there were enough plane owners in the country who were selling planes at losses, or who were giving their planes out on charter at a loss, purely to subsidize their own fixed costs. So I would be competing with a product which is superior to mine and cheaper than mine. Obviously, it wouldn't work. So I said, hang on, why are these plane owners selling planes at a loss? I need to fix that problem. And so I went back to the drawing board. I was about, I think, 22, 23 at that time. I reached out to plane owners and I went and told them that if you're losing money on a plane, what's the point of owning these assets? Let us make them profitable for you. And that's how the whole journey began. One plane owner had faith in us. He gave us one plane. In 100 days, we turned it around, made it profitable, and we never looked back from that day on. The first 100 days, I was the only employee. I used to answer the phone with different names because I didn't want people thinking that, it's a one-person company. And suddenly, in a year's time, I think from one plane, we were at about 12 planes. In 3 years, we reached 28 planes. And we were literally running an airline without owning any assets. And which is the biggest lesson I want to share with you guys. It's been the biggest lesson I've learned in my journey as an entrepreneur. Things are going to change. The whole world around you is going to change, evolve, develop. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a great entrepreneur, you've got to learn how to adapt. There's a very fancy word they use in the startup world, in entrepreneurial world, called pivot, which says you've got to be willing to change your idea when the need comes. But according to me, there's no change. It's always adaptation. Today, we all love the iPhone 14, but the moment the iPhone 15 comes out, everyone wants that, right? So Apple's adapting to the environment. They're launching new products to ensure there's customer stickiness, to ensure that there's a market for their products. And that's how we grew this entire business. So we started off by managing other people's airplanes, and we got the charter demand to a point where our demand was far greater than our supply. Then we went back to the drawing board and we said, now what do? We need to buy planes. Now is the right. We made this industry profitable. We made owning planes for customers profitable, number one. We made chartering cheaper, number two. And we got in transparency, commitment, delivery, which were the three missing elements from this business. Then we went around and bought our own planes. So this was, I think, about a year before COVID. I went to about 86 cities across the world in 102 days, found planes, came back, ordered them, took loans from banks, spent the money, and 6 months later, COVID hit. And if you remember the first lockdown, nothing was flying, nothing was moving, nothing was walking. And I think all my fears came true at that time because I'd never taken a loan in my life before that. And here suddenly I had so much debt, I had ordered planes, and I didn't know where the world was going. Even then, we took this consensus decision saying that we will not cut salaries, we will not fire staff. These were the two biggest problems going on during COVID. Half the aviation industry, my friend here who's got family in Emirates and Etihad will tell you what sort of hell had hit the roof. The aviation industry had the highest attrition rate, highest number of pay cuts, because it's a very, very capital-intensive industry. And I said, no, I'm not going to cut anyone's salary. I'm not going to fire anyone, for the simple reason that when I was making a profit, when I was doing well, did I go share this money with them? I am responsible for my 400 employees there and their parents, their kids, their wives, their siblings. We cannot afford to put anyone under any further mental stress than they already are. And mental health is what's most important here. So we didn't do that. But when the first lockdown opened and few special flights were allowed, our team was the only team in the entire industry who came to the airport fully geared up, willing to take risks, make planes fly, and go out there and do things. Which taught me the second most important lesson, which I would want you all to always take into account, whether you're working for somebody or whether you're an entrepreneur, which is invest in your team, invest in your people, believe in your people. Whatever you become, whatever you achieve is never a single-handed effort of your own. It's always a team effort. Teamwork makes dream work. And if you don't give respect to your team, you're never going to be able to shine. I mean, if you look at this festival today, it's not one person who's organized it. There's a whole team behind it. There's a whole army of people who's trying to execute it. I think finding the right people, whether they're to be your co-founders, whether they're your team members, whether they're your employees, is the first step to building a successful business. If you're going to find a co-founder who's not as committed as you are, you're going to find a co-founder who's not as energetic as you are, or who's not as knowledgeable as you need for the business is not going to work. And I mean, 20% maybe it will work, but 80% it's not going to work. You need to find a co-founder who makes up in the spaces that which you don't excel in. For example, like I said, I hate maths. I made sure I found a co-founder who loves math, who worships math, who's so good at math that even if I say 2 + 2 is 6, he'll correct me and say 2 + 2 is 4 before we proceed further. Anyway, so from then, like I said, so lockdown opened, we took delivery of our new planes, and today I very proudly say we own 10 of our own airplanes with an investment of 5,600 rupees when I started the company to where we are today. And we hope to acquire 10 more in the next 1.5 to 2 years. We manage a fleet of 28 aircrafts. We're India's largest private aviation company today as we stand. I remember once when I was talking about this business idea to my dad's brother, he told me, do you know how many zeros are there in a crore? And I actually didn't at that point of time. Today, we don't count our turnover in crores. We count it in a few millions of dollars because God's been kind and we've worked really hard to get the business where it is. Telling you a little bit about the business now. Aviation is a space, where everyone says if you're a billionaire and you want to become a millionaire, start an airline. Because it's a very, very capital-intensive, high-risk business. I'll give you a simple example. This morning, I was taking off. I was speaking at an event in Chennai at 8 p.m. last night, and I took an early morning 8 o'clock flight to come to Pune. And at 7:49, I get a customer call saying that, I don't like the face of your pilot. And I don't know what to do about it because obviously, I'm not going to be able to produce another pilot to fly his plane then because he doesn't like the face of my pilot. But I mean, this is still a lighter problem to have. But there are days where you've got fog, the days you've got bad weather, the days where you've got components failing on the airplane, the days where you have, crew falling sick and flights not happening. And these are risks which no one can control. We're one of the most high-risk industries. And I think it takes a, soul of a rock to really keep running this industry. When I first started the business, every time someone called me and a plane is spoiled and the flight's going to get cancelled, the first thing that would happen would tears would start rolling down my eyes because I didn't know what to do. Present day, I don't even come to know when a plane gets spoiled because I've got a great team behind me who's running it, handling the situation, and we've learned from it. We know, okay, a plane's going to get spoiled. This is what we have to do. We've built our own systems, we've built our own processes, but we've built these learning from the mistakes that we have made in the past, not only our mistakes, learning from other people's mistakes. In aviation, there's this thing called the black box. So you've been seeing there have been a lot of plane crashes in the last 3-4 years, and the news will always talk about recovering the black box. So the black box basically records all the conversations and all the flight parameters of the particular aircraft on that flight, and it's made of a material which is indestructible. So however bad the crash, the black box always survives. But the beauty of aviation is when these black boxes are recovered and whatever is discovered is shared with every single person. All the airlines share it amongst themselves, all the private operators share it amongst themselves. Why? Because we learn from the mistakes of others. I mean, when you're driving a car, if the car gets spoiled or if the driver's not well, he'll park it on the side, you'll get off, you'll board another car. If you're sailing a boat, you can still stop the boat, you can have a helicopter come and rescue you, you can have another boat rescue you. But when you're flying a plane, you can't stop the plane or park it in the middle of the sky and get out of it. Then there's only one way, which is down, and which obviously results in disaster. That's why aviation is a zero-risk game. It's not zero risk, I'm saying zero-error game. There's not scope for one single mistake. If one engineer forgets to remove one pin from the tire of an airplane, you have an accident that you can't avoid. Which is why it takes a huge team to keep them running. But why I'm telling you about this is, I made all of you all clap for yourselves when we got here. That's because I believe from the black box theory, what I've learned is every single mistake, every single error, every single thing that's gone wrong should not be kept deep within us, buried somewhere, out of the fear of being judged, out of the fear of, thinking, log kya kahenge. So you should celebrate your mistakes in a team. You should celebrate your hurdles. You should celebrate your problems. You should celebrate your challenges. You should share them, because you're not only helping yourself, you're helping everyone around you. I think sharing is very, very important, of both positive things and negative things. Humility is very, very crucial for any young adult, is what I say. It's very easy to get carried away in today's world of technology, where all of us are defined by what Instagram tells us and what Snapchat tells us. But the ground reality of it is, you can look as pretty as you want to on Instagram. Your real life is still going to be the same you, right? So we've got to learn to embrace and share all the right things and the wrong things that we do. I think, I want to save more time for questions, so I've given you a rough background of what we do, my journey, etc. I would want to leave you with one final lesson, which is, I always say, life's not a comfort-centric experience, life's a learning-centric experience. All of us are in this school forever called the Earth School, where every day you're going to be put through a lot of practical exams, some small ones, some big ones. You guys are in college, you know what practical exams are. When you grow up and go to the other side of the real world, you'll be tested every single day, and you'll have no notebook, no textbook to tell you what you've got to do. You'll only have this. So it's up to you to believe in yourself, to keep, teaching yourself, to keep learning how to survive situations, how to come out of situations, how to fight situations. If you believe in yourself and if you believe in your dreams, there's absolutely nobody else in the world who can stop you from achieving what you want to. Thank you. Do we have any questions? We're happy to. Can we have someone give a mic around?
Hi, I'm Gaurav Gupta. So I want to know how much loan did you apply and how did you apply when you initially started your...
I can hear him this fine.
Yeah, so how much loan did you apply and how did you apply? And I just wanted to know, like, when in your initial days, how did you apply and how did bank or from wherever did you, you did...
No, I got your point. So the first 7 years, we didn't raise any debt. I've only invested 5,600 rupees in the company. I skipped a small part of my story, which I'm glad you bring it up, so I'll talk about it. Our fourth flight was done by a particular individual called Puneet, who called me after the flight and said, Kanika, I want to be part of this journey. I said, how are you going to be part of this journey? I want to invest in you. I was like, why would you want to invest in me? No, I want to be a part of this company. And, I didn't understand it. I was too young and too uneducated, I would say, in this space to understand what VCs are. Now all of you know what VCs are, what funding is, what valuations are. At that time and age, nobody knew what this was. These weren't things that were taught in school or college. And so he said, I want to become a VC and I want to invest in your company. What do you think your valuation is? And I gave him a really, really random figure, something the company would probably be valued at now, I said to him then. But he was so happy with the service he had seen, he was so delighted with what we were doing, that he decided to take the step and he wrote us a check at a valuation that I wanted. And again, my biggest lesson from this is, when you're going out to raise money, always remember one thing. VCs don't invest in the idea. They're not investing in your business. They're investing in you. What a VC looks for is, what does the entrepreneur have? How much conviction, how much courage, how much belief, how much faith? Every single VC will invest in the individual and their capabilities. Because the VC knows that the individual is going to fail in this one thing, he'll succeed in the second other thing. So that's how we raised our initial funding, of course.
So was it the fourth flight or, I didn't get it?
Because it was this customer flew the fourth flight. The fourth flight we ever did is JetSetGo. He flew then. And even before and after, what we were doing was, I think I've always been a hustler. So we would take money in advance from a customer, to buy credit from the vendor and keep circulating money. It was only, I think, after 7 years of starting that we raised our first loan. But we already had a turnover of about 600-700 crores by then. We had a very good standing. And even that wasn't easy. Even today, if we have to go raise a bank loan, it is the most challenging thing in the world. Because these are movable assets. So you don't have any collateral to give. We're still very young, quirky, we're a fun company. We don't have a lot of old people running around with bald heads and blazers, which banks like to see. And aviation's a largely uninvestable, not uninvestable, but a sector banks don't like, that they consider very high risk. But I think raising debt from banks for any startup is always the most challenging part of the life cycle. So that should always be your last option, and I think you're only looking at doing it once you get profitable. No bank's going to give you a loan unless and until you're profitable.
Okay.
Or unless you've got like daddy's land to give us collateral or something like that, of course.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm Zishan.
Hi,
And recently my sister got engaged to a man, and coincidentally, he's an air traffic controller. So
Wow.
that's a bit relatable kind of thing. So yeah, my question is, during the COVID period, how were you able to manage the economical condition of your company, since there was a recession and obviously the flights were used to get cancelled? So how were you able to
Yeah,
manage?
again, I'm really glad you're asking me this question. I think you guys are asking me all the things I should have said before. But so thank you for that. But so I'll tell you one thing. It's very easy for a promoter, for an entrepreneur, for a business person to keep clawing out profits from the business. And one conscientious decision that I had taken was I'll never put in a personal expense into the business, number one, and I'll always draw the lowest possible salary. And at any given point of time, I always wanted to have 1 year worth of salary. Every time I hire someone, I ensure I have 1 year of salary for that person in the bank. And I've just been very conscientious. I'm a Marwadi at the end of the day. You know, there's a saying, "Kanjoos Marwadis." I think it's very true in my case because I'm very, very frugal in nature, and I think that's what helped us survive through COVID. We'd kept a substantial amount of money as savings in the bank, which came handy, which were all profits that we had earned over a period of time, of course, which came in handy to service this. And that's another thing I would like to share, that when you're starting a business or even your personal life, there's this thing, save for a rainy day, save for a rainy day. I'm not a big believer in this rainy day business, but I'm a big believer in the fact that you've got to have some money as insurance saved up. But be it for yourself, be it for your organization, be it for your family. You don't know when another COVID-like pandemic's going to hit. You don't know when shit's going to hit the roof, for the want of a better word. So always have some sort of money, which will get you out of a situation. And that's the only reason we sailed through COVID. I always had 1 year salary, and I only had to pay people for 3 months without flying. From 4th month, anyway, business picked up as usual again. Yeah, thank you. There was a young girl there.
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
It's really very nice to meet you and to see you here. I'm actually here for you only. And my question is how do you take care of your mental health, get family marriage, not doing the job, getting family permission is not there, and you've gone through this cancer. Then how do you take care of yourself with this business mind?
Thank you for that. So I think, mental health, by the way, is something that's very, very important. And it's not something which is taken very seriously in India. I'm a big promoter of mental well-being, of taking care of yourself. And I'll be lying, I want to have a very candid conversation because I'm here to help you and not help myself. And there are days I wake up crying, there are days I want to quit my business. There are days I want to shut down. There are days where things are so hard. I'm like, why the hell did I even do this? Why can't I be like my friends, live off my parents, live an easy life? And then, I always, by the end of the day, I'm like, I asked for this. I wanted to do this. So, how I keep myself going is I'm doing what I really love. I'm not doing something someone asked me to do. I'm not doing something someone forced me to do. Whatever decisions I'm taking, whatever I'm doing, I'm the person who's responsible for them, right? I'm the one who's taken the decision to do them. And which is what keeps me going. I think the moment I am compelled to do something I don't believe in, I would be very unhappy. But the moment I think, you start doing things which make you happy, then it's not a business, then it's not work, then it's pleasure. So it's up to you to convert work into pleasure. While I was studying, I used to love design school. It never felt like school or work. But when I was studying economics, it felt like the worst thing on planet Earth because I just didn't like economics. I hated economics or econometrics for that matter. So yeah, I think if you really do things that make you happy, and I'm not saying your whole day is going to make you happy. You may not like 3 subjects out of the 5 that you're studying, but you've got those 2 that have to keep you going, and then you've got to make time to do things that you really want to do. So I play a lot of sports. I used to run a lot of marathons. I've completed about 8 or 9 half Bombay marathon and 4 half Delhi half marathons. I play a lot of squash. I take a lot of time off, so I always the typical week for any human being is, okay, Sunday is a holiday. So I don't go by that system. I take a holiday when I want to take it. I will work on a Sunday, I'll work on a night, I'll work on a Saturday. I will work for 20 days non-stop. But the moment I realize I'm getting unhappy or I'm getting burnt out, I'll take 2 days off. You won't have this luxury now in college, but all I can tell you is, there are days where you'll feel burnt out, when you'll feel tired. Go out and do something for yourself. Treat yourself to your favorite ice cream, treat yourself to your favorite food, talk to a friend, share your concerns, share your problems. Keeping everything in here is only going to make it worse. Don't be scared of being judged. It's okay to talk. It's okay to share. You never know whether the same person's, the person you're talking to is probably having the same problems as you. You're going to make their day better and your day better. So I think sharing again is key to solving things.
Actually, I have another question.
Yeah, please.
Like, which point do you think it's my point to be go in the business? Or
Sorry?
At which point do you think, like, this is my point, I will be going the business, whatever happens?
We'll finish this question. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
Like, at which point do you think, like, it's my point, I have to go there, I have to show them, like, I can do the business?
I've been thinking that since I was this small. So I was a big loser in school, like I told you. Every time someone fought with me or ill-treated me, I would always say in my head, one day I'm going to be so cool that you'll be wanting to be friends with me, you'll wanting to be working for me, you'll wanting to be out there. So that tipping point, I think you'll find its own path. There's no calendar or schedule for this. I think when you mentally mature yourself and work for someone else, or maybe soon after college, I think you come to know when you're mentally ready yourself.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you so much. Happy to see you here.
Likewise. Guys, I've just been told we're out of time. So can we meet outside somewhere for any questions we have and stuff? Yeah? In the corridor or something? Yeah? Cool. Thank you so much. And I'll be out there. If you all have anything that I can help you with, I think Instagram is the easiest way to reach me. My handle is JetSlacked, JetSlacked. Please feel free to drop in a query. I mean, my whole point is if I can help 5 of you become better entrepreneurs, we'll make the country a better place. So please feel free to reach out. Whatever way I can assist, we'll always be happy to assist. Thank you so much.